The echo from beyond. The coffee had gone cold hours ago, but Dr. Nora Halsey hadn't noticed. Her eyes remained fixed on the monitor display that showed waveform patterns unlike anything the Artemis Deep Space Listening Post had ever recorded. The facility, humanity's most advanced exoplanet detection and signal analysis center, sat nestled in the remote highlands of New Zealand far from radio interference. Usually the night shift passed in comfortable monotony. Tonight was different. "That's not possible," Nora muttered, adjusting her glasses as she ran the pattern through another verification algorithm. The signal had first appeared at 3:42 a.m. local time, and for the past 2 hours she'd been trying to convince herself it was an equipment malfunction. The waveform repeated with perfect precision every 78.3 seconds, too regular for any natural astronomical phenomenon. More importantly, embedded within the pattern were unmistakable mathematical sequences, prime numbers, followed by what appeared to be representations of fundamental physical constants. Nora's fingers hovered over the emergency protocol button. This was precisely the scenario SETI scientists had dreamed about for generations, clear evidence of non-human intelligence. But something felt wrong. The signal wasn't directed at Earth, it was passing through their solar system like a stray bullet, aimed at some distant point. She reached for the secure line instead. "Dr. Acaffer, it's Halsey. I need you at the facility, now." Victor Acaffer arrived 40 minutes later, his tall frame filling the doorway to the monitoring room. Despite the early hour, the quantum physicist appeared alert, his eyes immediately focusing on the display screens. "This better be important, Nora. I was in the middle of—" His words died as he processed what he was seeing. "Good God, is that artificial?" "Absolutely." Nora pushed a tablet toward him with her preliminary analysis. "And before you ask, yes, I've ruled out terrestrial origins, satellite echoes, and instrumental artifacts." Victor studied the data, his expression growing more serious with each swipe. "The mathematical complexity is breathtaking. These aren't just prime numbers, there's a nested logic structure that appears to be describing quantum states I've never seen theorized before." The door slid open again as Dr. Jia Wei entered. The Chinese-American linguist had apparently dressed in haste, her laboratory coat was buttoned incorrectly. "What's happening?" The automated alert said possible non-terrestrial communication. Her eyes widened as she took in the synchronized focus of her colleagues. "It's real." Victor nodded without looking up. "And it's passing through our system like a message in a bottle not meant for us." Gia immediately took position at the linguistics workstation. "Direction of origin." "That's the thing," Nora said, pulling up a star chart. "It's coming from a vector that doesn't align with any known star system within 50 light-years, and it's headed toward coordinates that don't correspond with any catalogued celestial body." The three scientists worked in focused silence for hours, ignoring the sunrise that gradually illuminated the mountains outside. By mid-morning, a picture was emerging that none of them had anticipated. "It's a distress call," Gia finally announced, her voice tinged with awe. "Or at least that's the closest human analog. The pattern indicates urgency, repeating instructions, and what appears to be a method for constructing some kind of response device." Victor leaned back in his chair, rubbing his bloodshot eyes. "One alien civilization asking another for help, and we just happened to intercept it." "Do we alert the GSA?" Gia asked, referring to the Global Space Authority that oversaw all potential first contact scenarios. Nora's mouth tightened into a thin line. "Protocol demands it, but you know what they'll do: classify everything, shut down our research, spend years debating while this, whatever it is, passes us by." "You're not suggesting," Victor began. "I'm suggesting we learn more before government bureaucrats bury this discovery," Nora replied. She typed a command to transfer the signal data to a separate, offline system. "We have maybe 72 hours before the signal passes beyond our detection range. I don't intend to waste it." For 2 days, the three scientists worked in secret, bringing in only their most trusted colleagues. They set up a separate analysis station in the facility's unused storage area, routing power through backup systems to avoid detection. Dr. Wei's linguistic algorithms made the breakthrough late on the second night. "It's not just mathematics," she explained to the small group gathered around her workstation. "There's a coherent symbolic language underlying the numerical sequences. The signal contains specifications for building some kind of quantum entanglement device. A communication tool." asked Dr. Thomas Reeves, an engineer they'd brought into their confidence. More like a beacon, Victor said, studying the schematics they'd managed to extract. These quantum configurations would create a subspace disruption visible across vast distances. Nora's expression was resolute. Could we build it? The room fell silent. Theoretically, Thomas finally answered. We'd need to repurpose some of the quantum computing modules, but yes, it wouldn't be exactly to specifications, but we could create a rudimentary version. And we have no idea who we'd be signaling or what we'd be inviting, Victor cautioned. This message wasn't meant for us. But it found us, Nora countered. Maybe for a reason someone out there needs help. Gia shook her head. The GSA protocols exist for a reason, Nora. We can't just. The GSA would classify this for decades, Nora interrupted. By then, whatever civilization sent this might be gone. If there's an emergency significant enough for an advanced species to broadcast a distress call across interstellar space, don't we have a moral obligation to respond? The debate raged through the night. By morning, consensus was reached. They would construct a simplified version of the quantum beacon and send a response. Not the full distress call relay, but an acknowledgement that the message had been received, along with Earth's coordinates encoded in universal mathematical constants. If we're going to do this, Victor said as they began modifying equipment, we need to be prepared for the consequences. They weren't. The modified quantum beacon activated at precisely midnight 48 hours after their discovery. The response they sent was simple, a mathematical acknowledgement using the same prime number sequences from the original message, along with Earth's position in the galaxy. 3 hours later, as the small team monitored their makeshift equipment, the facility's power grid experienced an unexpected surge. Every electronic system simultaneously activated, screens displaying the same symbol, a spiraling fractal pattern that seemed to pulse with its own internal logic. In the center of the main observatory dome, the air itself appeared to fold inward, creating a vortex of light that stabilized into a perfect circle 3 meters in diameter. Through it, they could see what looked like the interior of a vessel with architecture that defied human understanding. Alarms blared throughout the facility as automated security protocols detected the unauthorized energy signature. In the chaos that followed, Nora found herself alone in the observatory dome, watching as a figure emerged from the portal. The being stood over 2 meters tall, with a crystalline exoskeleton that reflected light in hypnotic patterns. Its form was vaguely humanoid but with 4 upper limbs and a head that featured no recognizable facial features, only a series of geometric structures that pulsed with internal light. You responded to the beacon, the alien communicated, not with sound but directly into Nora's mind. The mental voice carried undertones of confusion and alarm. How did your species intercept a quantum-encrypted transmission? Before Nora could respond, the facility doors burst open as GSA security forces swarmed the room, weapons drawn. The alien's crystalline form shifted, taking on a defensive configuration. I am Envoy Krell of the Axiom Convergence, the being projected, now broadcasting to all minds present. Your unauthorized response has created a grave situation. Within hours, the Artemis facility had been completely locked down by GSA forces. Dr. Halsey and her colleagues found themselves separated and interrogated by stern-faced officials. The visiting alien, Envoy Krell, was secured in a specially prepared containment area, though the term containment seemed optimistic given the being's demonstrated ability to manipulate spacetime. Director Hiromasa Tanaka of the GSA's First Contact Division personally oversaw the operation. A veteran diplomat and exobiologist, Tanaka had spent his career preparing for this moment, though never under such chaotic circumstances. You have violated every first contact protocol we have, Dr. Halsey, he stated coldly during her debriefing. Unauthorized communication with a non-terrestrial intelligence is a violation of international law. With respect, Director, the situation required immediate action, Nora replied, struggling to maintain her composure after hours of questioning. The signal was a distress call. A determination you were not authorized to make, Tanaka countered. Now we have an alien entity on Earth and no diplomatic framework in place. Perhaps you should be more concerned with what the alien is telling us, Nora said. Envoy Krell claims we've put Earth in danger by responding to that signal. Tanaka's expression shifted slightly. Yes, we're aware the entity has been cooperative in preliminary communications. The following day, Nora and her colleagues were escorted to a secure conference room within the facility. Director Tanaka sat at the head of the table alongside military officials from several nations. Envoy Krell stood at the far end, its crystalline form shimmering under the lights. Dr. Halsey and her team will join this briefing as they are already aware of the situation, Tanaka announced, clearly unhappy with the arrangement. Envoy Krell has agreed to explain the nature of the transmission you intercepted. The alien's mental voice resonated through the room. The signal you detected was not meant for primitive species. It was a secure communication between the Axiom Convergence and our allies, the Lumina Conquered. Images appeared in the minds of everyone present, vast cities spanning entire planets, structures that appeared to be made of living crystal and light, civilizations clearly millennia beyond human development. For over 10,000 of your years, the major civilizations of this galactic sector have maintained peaceful relations, Krell continued. 6 months ago, our outermost settlements began experiencing catastrophic system failures. Investigation revealed an entity we call the Void Collective had entered our region of space. The mental images shifted to scenes of destruction. Crystalline cities going dark, strange shadow-like distortions consuming technology, leaving only empty husks behind. The Void Collective is not a civilization as you would understand it. They are consumers of energy and information, particularly drawn to advanced technological systems. The distress signal was a warning to our allies, requesting evacuation assistance before the collective reached our core worlds. Director Tanaka leaned forward, and our response has diverted my attention from my original mission, Krell replied. More concerning, it has revealed your world's location to the Void Collective. Your quantum beacon response was detected. They have already altered course. The room fell silent as the implications became clear. How much time do we have? Asked General Roshan Patel of the Indian Space Command. At their current velocity, Krell's mental voice carried unmistakable gravity. The Void Collective's advanced scouts will reach your solar system in approximately 4 months. And what happens when they arrive? Nora asked, already dreading the answer. They will disable your technology, then begin harvesting energy and information. Your civilization will collapse. Krell's crystalline form shifted in what seemed to be a gesture of resignation. I had hoped to reach the Lumina Conquered. Instead, I find a pre-spacefaring species that cannot possibly defend itself. Don't be so certain, Nora replied, meeting the alien's featureless gaze. Humans have faced extinction-level threats before, we're still here. Your confidence is misplaced, Dr. Halsey, Krell responded. The Void Collective has consumed civilizations far more advanced than yours. Then perhaps that's their weakness, Victor suggested. They're adapted to prey on advanced technology, but Earth still operates on multiple technological levels. Before Krell could respond, an aide rushed into the room and whispered urgently to Director Tanaka. The director's face paled. We're detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the solar system, he announced. Something is coming through, and it's coming much faster than predicted. The screens around the room activated, showing astronomical data from multiple observatories. Enormous distortions were appearing near the orbit of Neptune, warping spacetime itself. They've detected the quantum beacon, Krell projected, alarm evident in the mental voice. The Void Collective is not sending scouts, they're coming in force. As they watched the readings in horrified silence, Nora's mind was already racing ahead. If these entities targeted advanced technology, perhaps humanity's relative technological inferiority might provide an unexpected advantage. Director Tanaka, she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart, I think I might have an idea. On the screens, the distortions grew larger. Earth had less than 3 months to prepare for an enemy that had destroyed civilizations thousands of years more advanced. Their only advantage, the enemy had never encountered humans before. And that might be the Void Collective's biggest mistake. The primitive solution. The emergency session of the United Nations had been underway for nearly 14 hours. Representatives from every nation sat in tense silence as they watched the holographic projection displaying the approaching Void Collective ships. The vessels, if they could be called that, resembled vast crystalline webs that distorted the space around them, defying conventional physics. 3 months, Secretary General Ndidi Okonkwo stated, her normally commanding voice subdued. That's how long humanity has to prepare for an entity that has decimated civilizations thousands of years more advanced than our own. The chamber erupted into chaotic debate. Military leaders demanded immediate mobilization of nuclear arsenals. Religious representatives called for global prayer. Scientists insisted on attempts at communication. The cacophony only ceased when Director Tanaka stepped forward with Envoy Krell at his side. The alien's crystalline form glimmered under the chamber lights. Your weapons will be useless, Krell projected, the mental voice reaching every mind in the room. The Void Collective neutralizes energy-based technology before physical contact. Your nuclear weapons will simply stop. Then what do you suggest, Envoy? The Secretary General asked. Evacuation of your leadership and genetic samples to underground facilities. Preservation of your species' knowledge in non-electronic formats. Preparation for the end of your technological civilization. Krell's mental voice carried resignation. I have sent distress signals to the Lumina Conquered, but even if they respond, assistance would not arrive for at least one of your Earth years. Dr. Nora Halsey, watching from a side chamber with her colleagues, clenched her fists. We're not going to just surrender, she whispered. Dr. Victor Okafor nodded. Director Tanaka has arranged for us to present our proposal after Krell. Minutes later, Nora stood before the world's leaders, painfully aware of the weight of the moment. The fate of human civilization might depend on her next words. The Void Collective expects to encounter a unified technological civilization, she began. But that's not what we are. Humanity still operates across multiple technological paradigms simultaneously. She activated her presentation. What makes the collective so dangerous to advanced civilizations like the Axiom Convergence is that they've evolved specifically to counter quantum-based technology. They disable artificial quantum coherence. Essentially, any technology that manipulates subatomic particles in organized patterns. And your point, Dr. Halsey, the Russian representative interrupted. My point is that they have no countermeasures for simpler technologies because such technologies pose no threat to them, Nora replied. But that assumption is based on their experience with other advanced species. They've never encountered humans before. Victor stepped forward. We're proposing Project Bulwark, a two-phased approach. First, we create a technological honeypot, making our quantum systems appear vulnerable. Then, when they deploy their nullification field, we activate pre-quantum technology that they won't be prepared to counter. Skepticism filled the room, but as the scientists outlined their plan in greater detail, expressions began to shift. By the session's end, Project Bulwark had been authorized with unprecedented funding and international cooperation. The headquarters for Project Bulwark was established in a repurposed mining facility deep beneath the Colorado Rockies. 6 weeks after the UN vote, the complex was a hive of activity. Engineers, physicists, and military personnel from dozens of nations worked side by side in what had become humanity's last, best hope. Nora stood in the central command hub, watching as technicians installed retrofitted vacuum tube computers. The room resembled a strange hybrid of cutting-edge technology and 1950s equipment. It's like we're building a museum, commented Colonel Dmitry Volkov, the Russian military liaison assigned to the project. The bear-like man had initially been skeptical of the retrograde defense strategy, but had gradually become one of its strongest advocates. Museums preserve the past, Nora replied. We're repurposing it to save our future. Dr. Jiawei approached, tablet in hand. The latest simulations confirm our theory. The Void Collective's nullification field only targets quantum coherence above a certain complexity threshold. Vacuum tubes, mechanical relays, even early transistor technology should remain operational. And Krell's assessment, Nora asked. Still skeptical, but no longer dismissive, Jia replied. The Axiom Convergence abandoned analog technology so long ago that they never considered it could be weaponized against a quantum-level threat. Colonel Volkov grunted. Sometimes the old ways are best. My grandfather used to repair vacuum tube radios in Siberia. He would be amused to know they might save humanity. Across the world, similar transformations were taking place. Modern manufacturing facilities retooled to produce technologies that hadn't been commercially made in decades. Military bases installed mechanical backup systems alongside their digital infrastructure. Power grids implemented immediate switchover capabilities to steam and hydroelectric generators that used no quantum controls. The most ambitious element of Project Bulwark, however, was the orbital defense grid. Traditional satellites would be useless against the collective, so Earth space agencies collaborated on a network of simple projectile launchers, essentially sophisticated railguns powered by chemical reactions rather than electromagnetic fields. Dr. Thomas Reeves led this aspect of the project, working closely with Envoy Krell to understand the Void Collective's vulnerabilities. Their vessels, if you can call them that, are essentially living information structures, Thomas explained during one briefing. They have physical form but not in the way we understand matter. However, Krell confirms they can be disrupted by sufficient kinetic impact. Meaning we can hit them with rocks, Colonel Volkov simplified. Essentially, yes, Thomas agreed. Very fast, precisely targeted rocks. 2 months into the preparations, the first direct communication from the Void Collective arrived. Every electronic device on Earth simultaneously displayed the same message, a complex mathematical formula that Krell translated as, "Surrender your information synthesis. Resistance accelerates dissolution." Director Tanaka convened an emergency meeting in the Bulwark Command Center. They know we're preparing defenses. Good, Nora said, let them come expecting one kind of resistance, they'll find another. Envoy Krell, who had become an unlikely ally in the preparations, projected concern. You underestimate their adaptability. The collective has consumed thousands of civilizations. But never one like ours, Victor countered. Never one that maintains multiple technological paradigms simultaneously. As the meeting concluded, Nora found herself alone with Krell in the observation deck overlooking the facility's main production floor. Hundreds of workers assembled vacuum tube components and mechanical computers below. Your species is unusual, Krell projected, the mental voice carrying what Nora had learned to interpret as curiosity. Most achieve quantum technology and abandon previous methods. You retain them. We're nostalgic, Nora replied with a slight smile, and inefficient. Different nations develop at different rates. Some humans still live as our ancestors did thousands of years ago. This technological incoherence may actually save you, Krell acknowledged. Though I still calculate your probability of survival at less than 12%. Better odds than we had a month ago, Nora said. Krell's crystalline form shifted in what had become a familiar gesture of agreement. If you survive, the galactic community will need to reevaluate its understanding of your species. The Void Collective entered Earth's atmosphere on a Tuesday morning in October. Their arrival was heralded not by dramatic explosions or Independence Day-style destruction, but by silence. All across the planet, advanced electronic systems simply stopped functioning. Quantum computers went offline. AI networks collapsed. Global communications fell silent. Exactly as Project Bulwark had anticipated. In the Colorado Command Center, now running entirely on vacuum tube technology and mechanical switches, Nora watched as the master status board tracked the shutdown of global technology. Red lights spread across the display like a wildfire. Status report, Director Tanaka commanded, his voice steady despite the tension. Phase 1 complete, Victor reported. The honeypot infrastructure is down worldwide. Void entities are concentrating around major quantum computing centers as expected. Civilian evacuation status. Colonel Volkov consulted his mechanical ticker tape reader. 83% of population centers have successfully implemented emergency protocols. Non-electronic communication systems are functioning at acceptable levels. On the main screen, satellite imagery from their primitive orbital cameras showed the void entities, amorphous shadows that seemed to bend light around them, converging on major technological centers. They appeared to be absorbing or consuming the energy and information from Earth's most advanced systems. They think we're helpless, Nora observed, that our civilization is collapsing like all the others they've encountered. Activate Phase 2, Tanaka ordered. Throughout the facility, mechanical switches clicked into position. Rotary phones connected to hardline systems built using 1940s technology. Across the planet, similar activations occurred as humanity's retrograde defense grid came online. The railgun platforms in orbit, powered by chemical reactions rather than electronic systems, began launching their kinetic projectiles. Massive tungsten rods accelerated toward the largest void concentrations. The first impacts were recorded over Beijing. The void entities, unprepared for physical attacks from what they perceived as disabled defenses, scattered as the kinetic weapons tore through their amorphous forms. Direct hits confirmed, reported the weapons officer, reading from a ticker tape printout. Void entities showing signs of disruption. On the ground, military units equipped with retrofitted mechanical weapons engaged smaller void entities. Chemical rockets, guided by gyroscopic systems rather than electronics, delivered payloads of dispersed metal particles that seemed to interfere with the collective's energy patterns. The bulwark is holding, Victor announced, his voice tight with controlled excitement. They can't process what's happening. Krell, monitoring the situation from a specialized chamber, projected surprise. The collective is attempting to adapt its nullification field to target your simpler technologies, but the differing technological bases require fundamentally different approaches. They cannot neutralize everything simultaneously. For 3 days, the battle raged across the planet and in near-Earth orbit. The Void Collective, for the first time in its existence, faced resistance it hadn't evolved to counter. Its attempts to adapt were hampered by the sheer diversity of Earth's technological defenses, from vacuum tubes to mechanical computers to chemical propellants, each requiring different countermeasures. On the 4th day, the pattern changed. They're retreating, Victor announced, studying the mechanical plotting board that tracked the collective's movements. Void entities are abandoning major population centers and regrouping in the upper atmosphere. Consolidating for a final attack, Colonel Volkov suggested. No, Krell projected, the mental voice carrying an emotion none of them had detected before hope. They are preparing to withdraw. The collective operates on efficiency principles. When energy expenditure exceeds energy harvest by a certain threshold, they abandon the target. The command center fell silent as the implications sank in. We're winning, Nora whispered. 12 hours later, long-range observatories confirmed what seemed impossible. The Void Collective was retreating from Earth orbit. The amorphous entities were coalescing into their web-like vessels, preparing to return to deep space. In the Bulwark Command Center, exhausted personnel allowed themselves cautious celebration. Some wept openly. Others stood in stunned silence, unable to process that humanity had prevailed against an enemy that had defeated vastly superior civilizations. I would not have believed it possible, Krell projected, its crystalline form glowing with an intensity they hadn't seen before. My people fought for generations and could not achieve what you accomplished in days. Because you were too advanced, Nora explained. You had abandoned the primitive technologies that proved effective. Sometimes moving forward means you lose valuable things from your past. Director Tanaka approached, his usual stoic demeanor softened by exhaustion and relief. Dr. Halsey, the Secretary General wishes to speak with you. It seems the United Nations is establishing a new agency for extraterrestrial relations, and they want you to head it. Nora accepted the ancient rotary phone, smiling at the irony of discussing humanity's future using technology from its past. 3 months later, the UN Interstellar Diplomatic Corps headquarters opened in Geneva. The gleaming facility incorporated both advanced technology, now safely operational again, and retrofitted analog systems designed to function during any future void incursions. Nora stood at the podium, addressing representatives from every nation on Earth. Beside her stood Envoy Krell, now the official representative of the Axiom Convergence to Humanity. The Void Collective's retreat marks not just our survival, but our entrance onto the galactic stage, she told the assembled diplomats. According to Envoy Krell, the Lumina-conquered vessels that responded to the distress call will arrive next month. They come not just as rescuers but as potential allies, interested in the civilization that did what they thought impossible. She paused, looking out at the faces representing humanity's diversity, the very quality that had saved them. We enter this new era not as the most advanced species, but perhaps as one of the most adaptable. Our technological inconsistency, once considered a weakness, proved to be our greatest strength. We have shown that humanity's place in the cosmos will be determined not by our level of development, but by our unique approach to challenges. As she spoke, communications officers monitored both quantum channels and retrofitted analog systems, a technological redundancy that would become standard practice in Earth's new age of interstellar relations. In orbit, construction had begun on Earth's first diplomatic space station, designed to receive representatives from the Lumina conquered and other galactic civilizations. The station incorporated elements from multiple technological eras, a physical representation of the approach that had saved humanity. That evening, Nora stood in her new office overlooking Lake Geneva, watching the sunset paint the water gold. Victor and Gia joined her, the three scientists who had started this journey, now tasked with helping guide humanity's first steps into a wider galactic community. The Axiom Convergence Council has officially requested our assistance, Victor said, reviewing reports from their quantum communication array. They want to implement retrograde defense systems across their remaining colonies. Ironic, Gia commented. The most advanced civilization in this sector coming to us for technological advice. Not just technological, Nora replied, turning away from the window. Philosophical. Krell tells me their council is reevaluating their entire approach to development. They're beginning to understand that progress isn't always linear, that sometimes preserving the past is the key to surviving the future. On her desk sat a curious juxtaposition, a quantum data crystal gifted by the Axiom Convergence beside an antique vacuum tube radio that had been part of Earth's defense system. Together, they symbolized humanity's unique position in the galaxy, not the most advanced civilization, but perhaps the most versatile. Outside, the first stars became visible in the darkening sky. Among them, humanity now knew, were civilizations with technologies beyond imagination and threats that defied comprehension. But Earth had earned its place among them, not through superior advancement, but through the very diversity and inconsistency that had once seemed to hold it back. As night fell over Geneva, communications officers in the building's retrofitted control room monitored both quantum channels and analog frequencies, listening for new signals from the stars. This time, if Earth intercepted a message not meant for human ears, they would be prepared to respond not as intruders, but as recognized members of the galactic community.